Ladies and gentlemen of Algebra 2, this is Mr. Heron. We're talking about 4-2 today. 4-2 is right here. We're talking about solving quadratic equations or functions by graphing. 4-1 was all about how to graph a quadratic function. So now we're talking about how do you solve a quadratic by graphing. And the way you do that is this. What you're looking at is where does it cross the x-axis. Okay, the x-axis is where your solution is. Remember, a quadratic equation looks like this. You're trying to figure out where does it equal 0. Well, on a graph, this is where y equals 0. Okay, the x-axis is where y equals 0. So one of three things is going to happen. Okay, it's going to come down and just touch the line. All right, and that's going to be one solution. This one you're going to cross twice, so there's going to be two solutions. And the last piece you're not going to touch at all. That's going to be no real solution. Okay, and I say no real solution because there's a way to figure out a not real solution, an imaginary solution, but we'll talk about that later. So, but for right now, no real solution because of the process. So anyway, you're going to follow the same steps you did yesterday. All right, so figuring out the negative 2b and all that fun stuff. And then you're going to figure out where does it cross the x-axis. When I start looking at number 1 here, my y-intercept will be 8. My axis of symmetry, negative b over 2 times a. So that's going to be negative 6 over 2 times 1. So that'll be negative 3. So here is my axis of symmetry. All right, my y-intercept is going to be 8, so it's going to be about right there. Vertex is what happens when I substitute this in for x. So that's going to be negative 3 squared plus 6 times negative 3 plus 8. So 9 minus 18 plus 8. Well, that's going to be a negative 1. So that's going to be right there. So my vertex is going to be negative 3, negative 1. So then if I do this and I mirror it on the other side, well, where do I cross my x-axis? Well, I cross right here and right here. So my zeros are going to be a negative 2 and negative 4. Those are going to be my zeros. That's going to be my solution right there, negative 2 and negative 4. So here I got to do a little bit of maneuvering. So I'm going to take everything over to the other side. So I'm going to add x squared, subtract 8x. Over on this side, add x squared, subtract 8x. So it's going to be 0 equals x squared minus 8x plus 16. So this is what I want to deal with. So y-intercept is going to be at 16. So negative b over 2 times a is going to be a negative 8 over 2 times 1. So after all that, it's going to be a positive 4. So I'm going to be at positive 4 here. So once I substitute that in, 4 squared minus 8 times 4 plus 16. So that's 16 minus 32 plus 16. So that equals 0. So that means my vertex is right there. So the vertex is going to be at 4, 0. Axis of symmetry is going to be at 4. And my 0 is also going to be at 4 because that's where I cross the y-intercept. All right, that's this right here. That's my 0. That's what I'm looking for. Here, so with a negative x squared, the negative x squared tips me off that it's going to open down like this. So my y-intercept is still going to be negative 1, so it's going to open up, so it's going to touch right there. Negative b over 2a is going to be negative 4 over 2 times negative 1. So that's going to be 2. So negative 2 squared plus 4 times 2 minus 1. So this becomes negative 4. Be careful with the sign. Follow order of operations. I do the squared first, then minus, so I put minus 4. So negative 4 plus 8 minus 1 is going to be positive 3. So 2, 3. That's where my vertex is, right there. So then if I mirror that on the other side, I get it going like this. So where does it cross I've got it crossing at not quite. I've got it crossing at not quite at 0, not quite at 4. So I got it about 0.25 maybe, somewhere around there, and then about 3.75. Again, it's not precise. I could be more precise with a calculator, but I'm not as precise just doing it freehand. So that's going to be about as close as I can get. So in 1999, Adrian Nicholas broke the world record for longest human flight. He flew 10 miles from a drop point in 4 minutes 55 seconds using an aerodynamic suit. Using information from the diagram, ignoring air resistance, how long would he have been in free fall had he not used his suit? Use the formula negative 16t squared plus h of 0, where the time is t in seconds. The initial height means h of 0 means how high did he start off. So we went negative in feet. So it's going to be negative 16t squared plus, now it's not 10, okay? It's not 10. 10 is miles. 10 miles. I want to convert that to feet because everything is in feet. So I'll take that times 5,280. So that's going to be 52,028. So wait, sorry, back up. 52,800. So, using the information diagram, how long would it have been in free fall had he not used this suit? So basically, where does that equal 0? So, what I would do is take divided by, I would take this, I would take everything and divide it by 16 if I can. I'm not 100% sure I can, but I think so. So that means t squared minus 3,300 equals 0. So t squared minus 3,300 equals 0. This is kind of like saying, like b is 0, so a would be 1, b would be 0, c would be negative 3,300 if I simplified it. So negative b over 2 times a is going to be 0. So I'm going to cross, so my y-intercept is going to be negative 3,300. So what I would do is figure out when that equals 0. So I would add 3,300. I would solve it algebraically. So t squared equals 3,300. Square root of that is going to be 57.44. So approximately 57 seconds if he doesn't have his aerodynamic suit. So that's a pretty fast to fall 10 miles in less than a minute. So just kind of taking that into account, that's what that's going to look like. I don't know how in the heck you're graphing, by the way. So the highest bridge in the U.S. is Royal Gorge Bridge in Colorado. It's actually very beautiful. The deck is 1,053 feet in the air, and you're dropping it from 3 feet above the deck. How long will it take the marble to reach? So, negative 16t squared plus 1056, how long does that take to equal 0? Well, first thing I'm going to do is divide everything by 16. 0 divided by 16 is just 0. So 1056 divided by 16, so that gives me negative t squared equals, plus 66 equals 0. Negative t squared equals negative 66. So t squared equals 66. So square root. So if I square root 66, I get about 8.1 seconds. That's how long it would take for that thing to hit. So again, I'm using algebra. I'm not exactly going with graphs. It's going to set you up for kind of what's coming next. So just be ready. And that's all I got. So here's a picture of a rectangle. If you have any questions, come talk to me. Otherwise, have a good day.